is like where you've got data of the same type in the sense of an integer or a string, in that sense, all the same data, and they're all related to each other. You want to store them together, group them together, instead of grouping them all individually and then trying to find them and organise them and not knowing if you've got them all. If you missed one out, you can put them into an array. So an example of that would be like employees, employee names. And so you may have 200 employees or an array of 200, and you may be short of your 200 and you get a new employee starts. So you type in the employee's name into the new array and disjoint all the other employees. And when you want to access names of employees, you just need to access this one array. And so that's what arrays are used for. In C#, there's 3 different kinds of arrays. There's a simple one, most simple one is the single dimension array, and then the other one is the multi-dimension array, which can be like multi, as it says. It could be 2, 3 or 4 different dimensions to it. In 2 dimension you can think of it as like the XY axis, or columns and rows. So it's like columns and rows would be like 2 dimensions, and so the columns would have their value and the rows would have their value, so that'd be a multi-dimension. A jagged array is a lot more complicated. A jagged array is like, it's similar to a multi-dimensional array, but the difference is that instead of rows and columns where they've got the same data, but one represents the row and one represents the column, you've got the array, and the other part of the dimensional array is another array, and that array can, each array on the jagged array can be of different sizes, and so that's what makes it more complicated. But if you do know how to use them, you can use them very powerfully. So it's a useful tool for C#. So the first one we're going to cover is a single dimension array. And the first thing, what you've got to remember about C# is that arrays are not data types, though they've got to hold the same data within a data type. It's actually an object, it's a class, and so to create an array, you've got to create an object, and so you've got to use the new keyword. And so the way I would do the integer, you do int as if you're declaring an integer, then it's square brackets, space, and then you're going to give this object you create of the integer array a name so that you can access it, and we'll call this one numbers, just keep it simple. Then you go equals, and then you would use a new keyword, and then you'd go int square brackets semicolon, but inside the square brackets this is where, after the new, is where you tell the C# program what size this array is going to be, how many elements it's going to have, and we're going to just keep it simple and say 3 elements, but it could be like 200 elements, 3000 elements, whatever you wanted. But you do not declare the elements when you are defining an array, and that's what you're doing there. It's only when you create a new object. Right, so that's us created a new integer object. Now we're going to create a string. So you would go string, square brackets, and then you'd give it a name. We're just going to say names, and equals new and string, square brackets, and we tell C# how many elements it's going to have. We're going to say 4 just to keep it simple. So that's that's how you create an array. We've not assigned any values to it, and we've not used it yet. So the first thing we're going to do is say the integer number, we're going to give it, assign numbers to each element. And the way to do that, there's two different ways of doing it, and I'm going to show you both ways, because I'm going to create another integer, and when we create the object we'll actually assign values to it. And so the first thing we do, you use its name of the object, number, and the square brackets, and inside the square brackets, which element do we want to assign a value to? Element number 3, number 2, element number 1, or element number 0. Now arrays start at 0. So if you've got 3 elements, the first element is 0, second is 1, and the third one is 2. It's not 3. And this is where some people get confused. It's like minus, the last element is minus the number they put into the object. And so we'll start off at 0. So element, the first element, and equals, and we'll put 44 in there, and then we'll go on numbers, square brackets 1, square, and we're going to access the second one, and we're going to say 32, and numbers, square brackets 2, that's the third element, number 2, and we'll go 82. So that's us assigned elements to numbers. So what we're going to do is we will assign names to the string in the exact same way. So what we do is use the name of the object, the string array object, names, and we will go to element number 3, which is the last one. Excuse me. And we'll go equals Sam, and because it's a string array, it's got to be a string you're putting into it. It's got to be the declared data type. That's important because it's all the same data being grouped together. And so we're not going to do 0, 1 and 2. It's just to show you it's the same. I'm going to create another integer array, odd num, and equals, but instead of doing the new key command and int and how many elements, we can just pass all the elements that we want to pass into this object, and the object will be created. And I'll show you, we're going to do odd numbers. 1 is the first element, comma to separate, 3 is the next, comma, 5, comma, 7, comma, 9, comma. No, not comma, because we're going to finish here. So we've actually given it 1, 2, 3, 4 elements. So it's 0 to 3 to access it. And the semicolon. And that's our this is us just created an integer array object, the same way as we did up here, but with less code, and without having to assign each one individual. We've assigned it all in one statement. So there's two ways of doing it, and that's what I'm showing you, the two ways of doing it. And so if we run this code to see if there's any errors, and there's no errors, so everything's fine. Now to access all we need to do, we can use a for loop to print out each index, but what we're going to do is just, we're going to use, first we're going to console and then what we're going to do is we're going to odd num square brackets, and we'll access element number 2, element number 2 is the value 5, and so if we just end that, so this should be printed to screen, number 5. Number 5 is printed to screen, and we can also, we could do any one of these elements, so that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, so if we put number 4 we should get 9. So you can see that we've created an object, an array object, assigned all the values in one statement, and it's the same as what we did up here with more code, and then assigned them all individually, which takes up a lot more code. Now what we're going to do is we're going to prove that those worked as well. So we're going to do number, square brackets, number 1 is 32. 32, there you go. And to prove that the string worked, it's names, square brackets, and number 3, we assigned just one name to number 3, so if we run that, Sam should appear. Sam. Okay. And so what we can do is we can use a for loop, and int x equals 0. So we want to access this one, and there's 3 elements. So x is less than 3, and then what we want to do is increment x, and then what we're using is the braces, and after the braces, right, so we've got the code. This is the code to print out numbers. And in here we want to put x starts at 0, then it's incremented, so x, so, and if we run the code we'll see what happens, and it may be, yeah, so that's the old one, and so I spelt numbers wrong, 2 ends. And so what we have here is 44, 32 and 82. The for loop done 3 loops as we told it to, and accessed each element. And we can also do odd num. And x, so what we've got to do is change this here to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements. So if we change this to 5 and we run the code, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's printed out all the elements that's in